Yo, what's up guys? So when I first loaded up the new season of Fortnite, I noticed some differences in performance, so I've decided to create a video explaining the best settings for performance in Fortnite Season 6. Make sure you stick around until the end of the video and apply all of these tips for this to actually work and improve performance, and let's get straight into it. Let's start by going through the in-game settings. Windowed mode has to be on full screen. This will give you better FPS, improved latency, and just generally a better performance. There is no reason to use anything else. Turn it on now. The next setting is resolution. Now I personally use 1920 by 1080, and if you have a decent PC and aren't struggling for FPS, I would recommend you use the same, as it just makes the game look way more crisp and better quality. 1600 by 1900 is slightly more blurry and slightly lower quality, but it's still a really good option for a lower end PC. And then finally 720 by 800. Now I'd only use this if you're really struggling or you know you have a really bad PC that struggles for performance. It's still a really good option for people who do have lower end PCs or are playing on really bad laptops, but I'd only go with this if you really need to and have bad performance. Your refresh rate is pretty obvious. Check your screen's refresh rate and set this to that rate. The general rule is when you have 144 or below, go to one option above your screen refresh rate, and then if you have 240 or 360, just cap it at your screen's rate. So basically if you have 144, make sure that you go to 160 as your cap, and if you have 240, just stick at 240, don't go up to 360 as your refresh rate cap. To check your screen refresh rate, just right click on your desktop, scroll down to display settings, go to advanced display settings, and under display information you can then see your monitor's refresh rate. The next option is brightness. Now as you can see on the screen, sometimes in Season 6 the map does get a little bit dark, so I tried this with 100% brightness, but actually I found that due to some of the darkness, going with 125% gave me a little bit more visibility overall. Look at this visual side by side and then decide yourself, but I personally prefer ramping up the brightness just a little bit, just to make certain areas a little bit more visible. User interface I just have on 1 times. This is personal preference, but I don't see any reason to change this. When it comes to colorblind mode, I've done some testing and in my opinion it's best to have all colorblind modes off, and I'll come on to why I think that in a second. On the screen you can see the comparisons of all the colorblind modes when you're not in zone, and my personal favourite is the Deuteronope, as it just makes the colours way more vibrant. However, when you actually look at each colorblind mode, it's not actually that different to normal. The colours are a little bit different, sometimes a little bit more vibrant and sometimes a little bit brighter, but actually it doesn't matter that much as it's not going to give you a huge advantage in game. I then went off and did the in-zone test, and as you can see from the comparisons, all the colorblind modes still actually make it harder to see when in zone. And for that reason, I strongly recommend just sticking to normal mode and don't turn any colorblind modes on, because when you're out of zone, it's going to be so much harder to pick up eliminations and other people are going to have the advantage on you, which we do not want. We then move on to presets. Now you don't actually need to use these as we will customize them ourselves, but if you really want to make things quicker, just start on low and then follow the tips that I go through now. With the 3D resolution, this is another like your normal resolution, which is based on your PC quality. I would recommend sticking at 100% unless you have a lower end PC or struggle with performance. If that is the case, then just drop it down to a comfortable level that complements both your graphics and your performance. The low preset sets this to 44%, which if you need to, you can use, but it will throw your graphics back to the 90s. So just make sure that if you need to just put that up a little bit, then please do. With the rest of the graphics quality, set them all to either near, low or off, except for textures, which you then set to high or epic. It's Sharon explained in a Season 5 video that Fortnite is a very CPU heavy game, and when you put your textures to either high or epic, it actually puts less strain on the CPU and more strain on your graphics card, which is what we need because it takes a little bit of the pressure off your CPU. Turn VSync off as it gives you less FPS, so we don't want that. Also turn motion blur off. Turn on show FPS, as just during game this can give you some useful information. Also, especially when you're changing these settings, it's good to see what actually is working and what isn't working. Rendering mode is an interesting and widely debated topic, and I don't think there's a right answer on which one to use, but to be blunt, performance mode is obviously the best for performance. So if you're on a low-end PC or don't care about graphics at all and you only care about performance, then of course use performance mode. But if you care about graphics and you don't mind not having the absolute best performance, then using DirectX 11 or 12 is mostly personal preference. So from using these two settings myself, I find I actually get more stable performance and a better experience from DirectX 11, but I've heard others that swear by DX12, so don't just take my word for it, try them out yourself and see which one works best for you and your PC. Multi-threaded rendering can be a very useful setting. The general rule of thumb here is if you have 4+ cores, switch this on, and if you have 3 or less cores, then switch this off. The way to find out how many cores you have is just right-click the bottom taskbar, select Task Manager, navigate to the Performance tab, and then your cores are shown under your CPU details as shown here. The next settings are only shown for Nvidia graphics card users, but they're fairly simple to run through. You effectively just need to turn all of these settings off, apart from the reflex low latency, which needs to be turned to plus boost. Again, the reason for this has been explained in other videos linked in the description below, but this setting works very well alongside some other settings in the Nvidia control panel. Now you need to navigate to the Nvidia control panel, navigate to Manage 3D Settings, and then change the power management mode to Prefer Maximum Performance, and then navigate back up to Adjust Image Settings with Preview, and select the Use Advanced 3D Image option. This setting will give you lower latency. Just 2 final things to do and then you'll be fully optimized and ready for Season 6. The first is to make sure that you've updated your graphics card drivers. Now I explained how to do this on a previous video, so I won't run through it again, but it's as simple as on a Google search for the drivers for your particular graphics card and then just update them from there. And then the final thing that you need to do to optimize your PC is something I learned recently from Code Life, and that is to remove your PC temporary files. Now this won't make a huge difference, but having a less clogged up PC generally will improve the speed, so it's worth doing, and it's also worth checking for any other unnecessary installs or files on your PC. And that is it for the video, guys. Hopefully all of this will help you and will improve your performance in this season, because when I first logged on, I did realise that the performance was kind of not as good as last season, so hopefully this will at least help and boost your FPS slightly. If you did enjoy the video, please leave a like. I would really appreciate it if you also stuck around and subscribe to the channel, and hopefully I will see you all in the next one for lots more tips and tricks videos, lots more settings videos, and generally a lot of help ahead of the new season. See you guys next time. Peace.